Bend those elbows in the drops. Bend those elbows.
There are two basic ways to go faster on your bike. Pedal harder or decrease resistance. We're here today in Los Angeles at the Velo Sports Center with Jim Manton of Aero Sports to measure exactly how much faster you can go just by making a few simple changes to your position.
Okay, Ben, we're going to go ahead and bend our elbows on those hoods. Bend those elbows.
Now, Jim, a lot of people are familiar with how a wind tunnel works, measuring drag. How do you measure drag here on the track?
Well, what we use is the Alpha Manus Track Aero System. Really what we're doing is measuring how much power does it take you to go a given speed. So we take out drivetrain resistance, we take out rolling resistance, and all that's left is aerodynamic drag. So for instance, if it takes you 200 watts to go 20 miles an hour with one setup, and we change your setup and now it only takes 190 watts to go that same speed, we know that we've decreased your aerodynamic drag.
Aero drag is the biggest part of what you're overcoming. I mean, granted, when you're going uphill, gravity plays a big part, but when you're riding along on the flats, air resistance is the biggest thing to overcome. That applies whether you're racing the Tour de France or just racing to pick up your kids.
Absolutely. Anybody going any speed is traveling through the air and they're getting drag from the air and from the aerodynamics. So if we improve your aerodynamics, you're going to go faster, whether it's 10 miles an hour or 30 miles an hour, it doesn't matter.
One benefit to doing it on the track as opposed to a wind tunnel is that we're looking at positions that are sustainable, and it's all fine and good to get a crazy fast position, but if it's something that's physically uncomfortable to hold, that's not going to do any good. So we're going to look at 4 positions that you can hold, or at least a couple that you can hold in everyday life.
Correct.
Let's get started.
All right, let's make you fast.
The Alpha Manus track software operates on an algorithm with a few variables. Everything but the drag, or the CDA, is measured either ahead of time or in real time, so that any changes in the power to speed ratio can be attributed to a change in CDA. The formula is roughly this. Okay, great. What the heck does that mean? Basically, this means that your CDA, or your drag, can be quantified if you know power, rolling resistance, velocity, that's the little V here, gravity, mass, acceleration, wind, and air density. Before the test, we weighed rider and bike, and then measured saddle height so bike lean could be taken into consideration, as it converts potential energy into kinetic energy. Figures for rolling resistance and drivetrain resistance are plugged in based on estimates from tables and tested experience. Wind is assumed to be 0 inside the Velodrome building, and power, speed, and distance are measured in real time with a PowerTap hub and fed to the computer with a Wasp Ant Plus Bluetooth transmitter, which is taped underneath the saddle. For our test, we measured 4 positions: arms straight on the hoods, bent arms on the hoods, straight arms in the drops, and then bent arms in the drops. I did 5 laps in each position, with a throwaway lap in between each, and then once we had tested all 4 positions, I repeated the whole process again.
Ben is doing our initial baseline with his hands on the hoods, arms locked, looking very good, and we're getting good consistent numbers off of him with a less than 1% variability rate, which is fantastic. So he's being very, very consistent for us. Okay, Ben, we're gonna go ahead and bend our elbows on those hoods. Bend those elbows. Other than a flat plate, the worst shape you can present to the wind, for the most part, is a cylinder. So if we can take those arms out of the wind, that's gonna decrease his drag. Okay, let's put our hands on the drops, arms straight. Hands on the drops, arms straight. In this position, his back angle is higher than when he was arms bent on the hoods. So everybody assumes that going to the drops, your drag's gonna get lower, and certainly going from your arms locked out on the hoods to your arms locked out on the drops, certainly that's gonna decrease your drag. But then again, we now have those arms fully presented to the wind, and it's definitely increasing his drag. Let's go ahead and bend the elbows. Let's go ahead. We expect this to lower his drag. It's an extreme position, but the problem with this position is it's probably not very sustainable. What's happening so far is initially he went nice and low on his CDA, but as he settles into that position and it perhaps isn't comfortable or sustainable, now all of a sudden we're starting to see that drag rise back up again, or he's just unstable in that position as well. That will affect your CDA. A lack of stability creates more lean steer in the bike, and that's going to increase your CDA. We see fatigue all the time. Fatigue will increase drag. So as a rider gets tired, they get sloppier on their bike, drag increases. So we'll bring him back up to his hoods now, give his arms a break, and see if we can repeat those numbers. And what we want to see is, does the CDA go back to where we started? So now we've got him back to the bent elbow position. We're repeating the run we did because we want to repeat the numbers, and that way we know we're getting good data. And whether you're on a wind tunnel or the velodrome or testing outside, it doesn't matter. Multiple tests will give you better data. Yeah, drops, arms straight. There you go, perfect. He's now gone back to the drops, but keeping his arms straight, and just as before, his drag is increasing. We can tell he's getting tired. His drag is starting to increase. You can actually see it here, and you can see it here. As he gets tired, that drag is actually going up a little bit. So he's leveling out right where he leveled out last time in this exact same position, which is what we want. Bend those elbows in the drops. Bend those elbows. Good job. I know you're tired. Good job. Last time he did this, it started very low, but then started creeping back up because he just became fatigued. It's not a sustainable position for him.
How'd that look?
It looked really good. We got the numbers made sense to us. It was consistent and repeatable. Surprisingly huge differences in drag. So obviously with your hands on the hoods and your arms locked out, sort of sitting straight up, that creates a ton of drag. But as you bent your arms and got your arms parallel to the ground, that lowered your back angle significantly, took your arms out of the wind, and saved us an average of 94 watts of drag.
Wow.
Which translates into over 25 miles of over 40K to 5.8, almost 6 minutes of time savings, just by bending your elbows and getting your back out of that and get lower. Same effort. When you went to the drops and we kept your arms straight, that was a savings of about 67 watts. So not as much as being up on the hoods with your arms bent. The moment you bent your arms in the hoods, then all of a sudden we saw a 112 watt savings. But what was interesting, that was our average savings. You started off very low, but we could watch you fatigue as you went around, and that drag started creeping back up again because it just wasn't a sustainable position for you. So it saved us some great wattage, but let's face it, you weren't going to stay in that position for 40K. No. You were going to stay in that position for maybe 5K and then give up on it. Yeah, exactly. So in the end, those arms bent on the hoods, if that's a sustainable, comfortable position for you, that was your best overall position.
Now this has been a treat for me to have access to your expertise in the Alphamanus Track Aero software. For people who don't have such a luxury, how can they experiment to find a faster yet sustainable position?
You can do exactly what we did today. Try different arm positions, get yourself lower, and you can even test that just rolling downhill. When you get lower, you'll go faster. You just want to make sure it's sustainable. So when you get lower, you're going to bring your torso lower. You might need to add a little reach to keep it comfortable. But if that keeps you low and out of the wind, you're going to go faster. You're going to get to your destination much, much quicker.
Of course, use common sense when employing aero positioning. When you're climbing, it's all about being comfortable. Aerodynamics is a much smaller part. But when you're rolling on the flats or you're going downhill, that's where you can get low. My takeaway from today is it's all about the elbows.
Bend those elbows. That'll get you out of the wind, and you're going to go faster.
Great. Thank you, Jim.
You bet. Thank you.